Hello, the purpose of this SAT reading mini tutoring is to give you an insight into my private SAT tutoring courses. Today we will focus on something you will rarely hear about, even though it is the most important aspect of the SAT exam, namely how to manage your time while maintaining a close to flawless precision level. So let's look at the cornerstone of time management in SAT reading, the main idea-based text processing strategy. The first question is, why should you first determine the main idea before even looking at the questions? There are three answers to that. Number one, to answer main idea questions. Number two, to make an educated guess. That means when in doubt, pick the answer choice closest to the main idea. Number three, to unlearn your current reading habits unfit for the rigorous time limits demanded by the SAT. Question 2. How should you determine the main idea without reading the entire passage? First step. Scan the text for main idea clues instead of reading blindly. Underline the main idea clue sentences while reading them superficially only once. Do not reread them. Do not try to memorize them. Stop scanning for additional main idea clues once you got a pretty good feel for the main idea. Have faith in step 2 below. Step 2. Apply process of elimination to the answer choices. That means look for what's wrong instead of what is right to avoid traps within the answer choices. Scavenger hunt, which means go back and forth between the answer choices and the text during process of elimination. Do not memorize the answer choices to protect your cache memory. Eliminate answer choices based on specific words not supported by the main idea clue sentences underlined in step 1. Get picky. Systematically scan every single answer choice starting with the last for suspicious words, strong words, weak words, and intimidating or scary words. Step 1 ensures the reallocation of some of your usual reading time to step 2. Let's see step 1 and sub-step 1 of this step, which is scan the italicized text for the topic. A narrowing down of this topic will follow in the text. So let's see a simple example for that. Here's the topic. Let's say the topic is the excavation of Mayan ruins. This topic, as you see, is broad and general in scope. Okay? And it will narrow down to the main idea, which is, let's say, a controversy surrounding a particular excavation method. As you see, this will be narrow and specific in scope as opposed to the broad and general scope of the topic. Basically, what you can see from the main idea is that the author does not take a stand on the issue. It only accounts for the opposing opinions and facts. Now let's see an associated question, a main idea question to this simple example. And as you see, there are 4 choices, and usually I like to start at the end, since the test designers, expect me to start from the beginning to manage time and to get ahead of my competition. I like to start at the end, especially that on difficult question, the last choice is usually more likely to be the right answer or one of the last choices. So let's say that this main idea that we see here, the controversy surrounding a particular excavation method, is the last choice, or a paraphrasing of it. So this matches, so it will be a maybe, okay? And let's move on to choice C, which says the inadequacy of a particular excavation method, okay? Now, when I look at these answer choices, I pretty much scan, I read with anticipation, I scan for suspicious words. And those suspicious words are, as I said before here, strong words, weak words, and intimidating words. And now here the strong word, yes, inadequacy, okay? This is a very strong word. It means that the author takes a stand on the issue. But our main idea is just exploring the controversy surrounding this excavation method, so the author does not take a stand. Therefore, inadequacy is incorrect and choice C is incorrect. Let's move on to B. It says the excavation of Mayan ruins. Well, this is supported by the passage, but only on a topic level. We want the main idea. So to eliminate choice B, we need to refer back. Is this question a main idea question? Yes, it is. And this is just the topic, which is broad in scope. Therefore, it is wrong. While the previous one, the inadequacy of a particular method, that's too narrow in scope. The author did not take a stand on this issue. Finally, choice A says the excavation of Egyptian ruins. Here, the suspicious word is Egyptian. It's highly specific, and this is not mentioned. We want Mayan, not Egyptian, therefore it's wrong. Okay? So the final conclusion to this page is be sure to track whether the author takes a position or merely expands on something without taking a stand when solving main idea questions. Let's continue with another page. And here we will look at substep 2 of step 1, which is scan a structured non-literature text for the main idea. Let's see what kind of main idea clues we have in such a passage. Let's assume that here we have a long passage which is structured, so it's not literature. Literature is usually not structured. And we have all these inner paragraphs. Introductory paragraph, 3 inner paragraphs, and finally the concluding paragraph. And the first main idea clue is denoted by A, is location. It turns out that the main idea in a long structured passage, which is non-literature, is in one of 5 places. These places are denoted by stars, single star rarely and triple star often. So rarely, the main idea is the first sentence of the introductory paragraph. It is rarely because most often the first sentence signals conventional wisdom or the opposing point of view because of the depth of thinking requirement enforced in writing, in English writing. So the first sentence instead of the main idea is conventional wisdom. Okay? But nevertheless, every once in a while, the first sentence could contain still the main idea. Where else could occur the main idea? Very often it occurs inside somewhere, denoted by triple star, and usually comes after a main idea trigger word, which will be choice B. But still, location-wise, inside. The third place is the last sentence, so inside, or the last sentence of the introductory paragraph could also be the main idea. The next most frequent is the first sentence of the second paragraph. And almost always, the very last sentence of the concluding paragraph rephrases, reiterates, repeats the main idea of the entire passage. Okay? Now, let's move on to main idea clue type B, the main idea trigger words. They are usually opposite direction clues, denoted by DC plus as a shorthand. And these opposite direction clues are, for example, however, but, yet, and others. And or they could also be, you have although, blah, 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 comma, and after the comma you have the main idea. Then you could also have the so-called yin-yang words. And after the yin word, you have blah, 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 some conventional wisdom, and then you have a period. And after the yang word, in a new sentence, you have the main idea coming up. Let's continue. Main idea location, main idea clue type C is paragraph topic sentences, which show they are equivalent to paragraph main ideas. And they are expressed by the topic sentences, the first sentences of every paragraph. So in a sense, the main idea will be the sum of these topic sentences. Topic sentence 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. We add them all up. The next one. Paragraph conclusions could be useful to identify the main idea. They are the last sentences of every paragraph. So in this case, the main idea will be the sum of these paragraph conclusions 1, 2, and 3. So these sentences basically 1, 2, and 3. There they are. And the topic sentences were here. Okay. E. Repetitive themes like emotion words, for example, emphasis words like crucial, vital, and rhetorical questions, the question mark, or quotations included in these main idea clues A through D could also signal and confirm that what you read is indeed important. So what is time management in reading for the main idea? First, skip the detail. Notice the detail is always inside in every paragraph. You shouldn't worry about that. You skip that. And then, while moving from A to E, main idea clues A through E, you should first apply process of elimination with A, then with B, etc. But stop anytime if you have eliminated 3 out of the 4 answer choices. In other words, apply partial elimination based on the main idea clues A through E described above. And by the way, when you scan for the main idea, again, as usual, you should start at the end. They expect you, the test designers expect you to start at the beginning. Therefore, you start at the end in order to get ahead of your competition and maybe catch the main idea even earlier than they expect you to. On difficult passages, difficult questions, usually starting at the end, it's always useful and pays dividends. Okay, we're done with this page. Let's move on to an exercise to see how this is applied. And this exercise will be fairly easy. It's a bit unrealistic because we have no italicized part to it. But other than that, it will be very useful. So we don't even look at the answer choices. We know we need to determine the main idea, but we know we want to start at the end, okay? And starting at the end meaning the last sentence. And sure enough, I notice in the final analysis. This is very important. It's a strong main idea clue. And I keep reading, bank deposits insurance may undermine rather than bolster public confidence in our financial institutions. Notice also may, this wishy-washy unsure word, which shows a possibility. And so we know that anything could have any kind of possibility. So it's very easy to defend. So these are two strong clues in the final analysis and may that this sentence indeed is the main idea. So if you are very confident, for maximum confidence, you stop right here and you use this sentence and you proceed with the process of elimination. But before that, of course, you want to shorthand it somehow on your paper here. So the shorthand for this would be bank deposit insurance may be negative. Notice how it doesn't take me too much time to shorthand this. Now let's look at the answer choices and let's work with this much reading. And let's again begin at the very end, okay? We save so much time doing so, but we do it in a calculated way. While we proceed with the process of elimination, starting with the last, the note is be easy with the maybe and be sure to scavenger hunt. Move back and forth between the given choice and the underlined sentence which you look at, okay? You need to go back and forth in between. You don't want to keep anything in your memory, okay? To protect your cache memory. You want to protect your cache memory, which is used for shorthand note-taking. Now, let's look at choice D. In choice D, again, I sort of read superficially, but I'm on the lookout for suspicious words. In this case, it says the government should take greater steps to ensure customer deposits, but more importantly, the word should signals opinion, okay? And an opinion is always stronger than may here, okay? So one word, should, is not justified by my text, the crucial part of my text. Therefore, the choice cannot be correct, okay? The rule is an answer choice is correct only if every single word in it is justified by the crucial part of the text. The consequence is if I can find even one word which is not justified by the crucial part of the text, that choice should be eliminated. And so I eliminated it. Now let's move on to choice C. Here we have if and could have. Of course, I sort of scanned it, but it says if the government had taken the proper steps, the Great Depression could have been prevented. If could have, that shows hypothesis. Well, hypothesis is still stronger than may. May is an extremely weak word, which is very easy to defend, and basically may does not justify the stronger hypothesis, okay? Therefore, I can get rid of C as well. Let's move on to choice B. It says financial panics and bank runs are not likely to occur in the future since bank deposits are insured. So I purposely just highlight the crucial things that I pay attention to. I superficially scan and I zero in on are not likely to occur. Well, this is possibility, all right, but it's the opposite of a possibility. And it's exactly the opposite of may undermine. And here it says are not likely to occur financial panics and bank runs. So it's completely the opposite of what I want. Therefore, I can get rid of this choice as well. Now, let's move on to choice A. Here, the government's insuring of bank deposits may have unintended consequences. Again, I have may and negative unintended consequences. So negative possibility, which it's confirmed by the text. Therefore, it's a maybe. And since that's my only maybe, be easy with the maybe, that's my correct choice. And I put a check mark, and then I move on to the next passage. Now let's explore the situation where I'm not so prepared, not so confident. Then what's the consequence? Well, I need to read more. So then I will look at the beginning of the last paragraph. And sure enough, you know, I have ironically, however, so ironically, however, shows me opposite of the direction. So that's really main idea clue as we learned it. And so I keep reading. The perception of this safeguard induces banks to extend far riskier loans than they would otherwise. So it's negative, thereby increasing the likelihood, so possibility. So for medium confidence, this basically confirms what a confident student already realized, but at the expense of additional time. So a less confident student will solve this question in more time, which is not ideal. Now let's see if I have an even less confident student, then I would probably read even more. And here the word thus is sort of like a conclusion signal, a conclusion trigger word. And so I read it, thus reassured, blah, 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 the public will not find itself in financial panic. Well, that goes against this. So Basically, a smart student, a prepared student, by seeing ironically, however, immediately would disregard thus because this goes against the previous paragraph. So, and a totally unprepared student will do what? It will even read something starting like it is commonly assumed, which is sort of like a yin word, you know, it indicates that common knowledge, the opposite side of the issue will come up, conventional wisdom will come up, and actually this phrase tells me, if I'm prepared, that I shouldn't read this sentence because it's redundant unless the main idea, if the main idea would come afterwards and I wouldn't understand what I'm reading, then maybe I read the conventional wisdom which goes against it, and so by knowing what the opposite is, then I would figure out what the main idea is, even if I don't understand it, let's say in an old text. Many times that could occur. Okay, so that's about this page. Let's continue with a longer passage, which is much more difficult. And so let's start with step one. Step one, looking at the italicized version. And it says the following article was written by a biologist, okay? So we're dealing with structured science, okay? So the topic is biology, and looking at the length of the passage, it's like medium length. So structured science and medium length, it's medium difficulty level. Structured science, medium length. Now, very important mantra, something is really, really important. That's why I always write, in that case, repeat after me, after you have it engraved in your mind. Quickly through the passage, slowly through the questions. It's exactly the opposite of what you have been taught in your conventional education. How do you do this? Quickly through the passage, slowly through the questions? By using the main idea-based text processing strategy, okay? And let's start with my notes, you know, and then we attack the passage. So my notes say here, be bold and patient with time-consuming texts such as above. But this seems like it's contradiction. So how do you strike the balance? How could you be both bold and patient? Well, here are the steps to do that. Use the time saved on an earlier, easier text like before. We saved some time because we never relax, even on easy passages. We make a huge effort to save time. And then next advice, be sure to A, read one or two additional sentences if you understood the current sentence, but a pronoun demanding to be clarified sends you back to the previous sentence. We will see that in action. However, but B, quickly quit reading something that is too detailed for a main idea, or if you have no clue about what you are reading. In this case, move on to the next main idea clue as soon as possible. The third advice, stay flexible. How do you do that? Or what do I mean by that? Well, see, if you are pressed for time, you can already proceed with a process of elimination right after step 2 above, okay? So what is step 2 above? Step 1 was reading the italicized version. Step 2 is starting from the end, as we learned, and looking at the last sentence. And the last sentence says the following. Meanwhile, we are completely dependent on them for survival. It is enough to make you... Oh, okay, the last sentence was, it is enough to make you reconsider whether or not us humans are as powerful as we like to think. Now, here we have it, pronoun reference. I understood what I read, so we want to see what it means. So this sends me back to the previous sentence. Then I read this sentence. I made a mistake previously, sorry about that. Meanwhile, we are completely dependent on them for survival. So here we still have them, so we need to, this sends us back yet again. And so let's read the previous sentence, but here I can make a shortcut as well. Look at this comma here. I always circled commas, and this comma, after the comma I have what? We still wouldn't make. That's subject verb. That's the beginning of an independent clause. The independent clause is always the point of a sentence, even of a complex sentence. What's before, probably it's a dependent clause, and as such is non-essential information, so I can skip reading it for the time being at least. So we still wouldn't make a big dent in the numbers or variety of bacteria. So it turns out that them is the bacteria. Okay? So now we know that the main idea is that bacteria are more powerful than humans. This is the extreme shorthand note-taking of all that I read so far. Okay? Now, if I'm a confident, prepared student, or if I'm pressed for time, I could basically attempt, maybe if I'm pressed for time, I could attempt to get the right answer because this is a long passage. So let's look at this question here. It says, the primary purpose of this passage, that means main idea, is to suggest that. So, main idea question, let's start at the end as we learned it. And at the end it says, bacteria transform indigestible matter into energy and nutrients. Well, here, the word indigestible is highly specific. It's sort of like the most difficult word, and it's too specific, you know, for main idea questions, the difficult choices, the choices containing difficult words are unlikely to be the answer because they are too narrow, too specific, and as such are unfit for a main idea answer. So I would eliminate this choice because I want bacteria compared to humans are more powerful, and here humans don't even appear. Let's move on to choice C. It says overpopulation is a problem for all species. Well, this turns out it's broad scope. It's too broad, too general compared to my main idea, which is above. Bacteria is more powerful than humans. Okay, so I got rid of C as well. Let's continue with choice B. Choice B says the genetic fitness of bacteria deserves recognition. Well, we have genetic fitness, too specific, narrow scope, and the bacteria appears, but we need humans as well for our main idea. No comparison there, it's out. Now let's look at choice A. It says an organism besides humans largely impacts and sustains life on Earth. Well, humans are there. An organism besides humans, that's a disguised way to say that the bacteria, and largely impacts, it's the wishy-washy term that usually warns me that this is probably a defensible, good choice for a main idea question. And so this will be the right answer. This is my maybe, and A will be the right answer. It's the right scope for my shorthand main idea versus our main idea, which was bacteria are more powerful than humans. Now let's assume that I have more time, or actually here I didn't really have runner-ups among the choices, so a smart student would be satisfied with reading just this much as we read above. But let's say somebody is less prepared or less confident, then that person would probably have to read more, and he would probably jump here, or she would probably jump here. It says the first thing, well, that's not so promising. That's fairly specific. I want something more global. This is a main idea question, remember. So I would quit reading, just as I advised before. You feel free to quit reading anytime you think it's useless, what you see, based on the beginning. And here, let's move on to the first sentence, the last sentence of this. And so that starts here, yes. But if I quickly look forward, I realize that I have but and then an if statement. So, and then after if statement usually means don't read afterwards. So, but you will find it's promising. You will find that. that's an emphasis word, so it shows that the main idea follows after this. If tells me main idea doesn't come just yet, but tells me it would come, if cancels that, and then you will find that absolutely shows me that the main idea is coming up. So you will find that there is another group of organisms, the bacteria, now I know, that has a far more significant impact on the world than anything we could ever hope to produce. Those tiny critters are called bacteria. Well, in fact, the last sentence was this, so maybe we would read step 3, those tiny critters. That doesn't tell me much, but those sends me back one level, and then I start reading after but, and you will find that. Notice how this reconfirms our initial main idea suspicion and the last sentence of the passage. And notice again, but you will find that far more significant impact on the world, anything we could ever hope. These are all strong emphasis words that show me that this is the main idea. Also, at the end of the passage, I have these important words like completely dependent, survival, reconsider, powerful. These all show that main idea. All in all, reading this sentence, step 3, was not that necessary. A less prepared student would solve the same question in more time, whereas a completely prepared student and a confident student would just read the last sentence with the same results. So this student is better because solves the same question in less time and then can allocate that time saved to the subsequent question. Now let's continue my observations here with D. So if you're pressed for time, or if you are confident and there are no runner-ups, you just solve it with minimal amount of reading as above. But otherwise, let's say you're not so prepared, not so confident, or maybe you have 2 choices remaining, then you have to read more. For example, in this scenario, if I would have 2 maybes, then I would still end up reading this sentence here. But this was not the case in this example. But let's say otherwise, you can strengthen your main idea suspicion by moving on to the next main idea clue, steps 3 and 4, as above. Step 4 was here. Very important to stay alert. Always be sensitive to main idea trigger words, which were those, but, yet, however, except, also although, though, despite, blah, 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 then comma, and after the comma I have the main idea, still, and so on, others. Pay attention also to emphasis words, EW, like we have seen above, reconsider, powerful, completely dependent, survival, vital, crucial, impact, far more significant, you will find that, and others. Also pay attention to repetitive themes, RT, usually are presented in contrasting fashion, such as we humans versus them, organism, bacteria, as we have seen above. Also in other passages, maybe you could see passionate, affection, charming, love, positive emotions, versus unpleasant, heartlessness, spoil others, good time. Okay? Finally, the lesson, the additional lesson, we have to come away from this example. SAT often prefers general, simple, paraphrased answer choices over specific, complex, not paraphrased answer choices for 2 simple reasons. Number 1, you don't like them, okay? Sad, but it's true. They pick those. Number 2, they are easy to defend, okay? SAT wants easily defensible choices. Why? Because then SAT can claim that the test is more objective. And so they avoid arguable choices, okay? That's that about this page. We're finished with that. Let's continue with another exercise. Still single passage, long passage exercise, but it's it's more difficult, okay? It's more difficult because we will have to read more. We cannot take those shortcuts that we have taken previously. So again, related to this exercise, we have a mantra. Repeat after me, okay? I want you to engrave this in your mind. If I'm unsure on a question, I will not select the answer until I have found reasons to cross off physically with my pencil all the other choices based on a word not justified by the passage. Okay? This is very, very important. Why is that important? Well, my notes down here will clarify that further. So let's see. Here it is, the second observation. To succeed, you must not look for the correct choice. Rather, you must look for reasons to get rid of choices by comparing systematically every single answer choice with your main idea clue sentence, sentence 2 above. Okay, so we will look at the passage pretty soon. So let's start looking at this passage, okay? So let's start as usual with the italicized part. It says the following article was written for a science magazine in 2008. Notice it's a recent article and science. So structured recent article, medium in difficulty because of that. And now we immediately jump to the end. While our competition, unprepared competition, not so insightful competition starts working in order, we want to catch them off guard and gain competitive advantage. So let's look at step 2, the last sentence. It says the energy dedicated to taking the caffeine out of coffee attests to the popularity of the ritual born so many years ago when some goats enjoyed the first ever coffee buzz. Okay? Now, how could we shorthand this easily? The energy dedicated to taking the caffeine out of coffee, well, that's just simply decaffeinating. So the decaffeinating process, it's the shorthand of that, proves that coffee is very popular, very important. There is popularity. So that's my shorthand. It's simple. It doesn't take me much time to do that. I need to do it. Why do I need to do it? Well, I have a main idea question right here to answer as a recap. The passage serves mainly two main idea question, plus stuff that we don't go over in this training, but you can do it together with me if you sign up, sign up for my courses. There will be many subsequent questions where you make guesses or choices using this main idea. Usually the right choice is close to this main idea. So an educated guess should involve this main idea. So you better have a shorthand of this main idea. Why? Because sometimes there are no main idea questions, but still the main idea shorthand will be useful to evaluate the other answer choices, especially the difficult ones where you have 2, sometimes even 3 runner-ups, and out of those you need to pick the one which is closer to the main idea. Okay? Now let's try to do already partial elimination. So let's see if I can wind up with one choice. Let's start again with the last choice. Okay? So there is choice D. It says describe efforts to accomplish a difficult goal. Well, notice that this is a general, so-called generic choice. It's very general. Students hate it very much, but because of that, test designers love it. And smart students, prepared students, my students usually know it's suspicious. It's always a maybe because it's so general. It's dangerous. We don't like them, but because of that reason, we keep it. Okay? Let's see choice C. Propose new decaffeination process, a new decaf process. Well, that's a bit general as well. So let's keep that as well. Be easy with the maybe. Why? Because once you eliminate the choice, then usually you never come back to it. And what if it was the right choice? You can only eliminate a choice in which you are 100% sure that it's wrong based on the justification of the text, not based on I think, not based on your prior knowledge, not based on your personal likes and dislikes. You all know that when you don't like something, you tend to eliminate it. And when you like something, you tend to pick that choice. Forget that for the SAT, okay? So what about choice B? It says, explore the historical significance of coffee. Well, we want decaf process causes coffee to be popular or proves that coffee is popular. So the historical significance of coffee, it's too general, broad scope. It's like the topic maybe. So it's not good, I eliminate it. What about choice A? It says discuss the advantages of decaf coffee. Well, decaf coffee, it's already there, but the fact that it proves that coffee is popular, it's not entirely the right scope. It's still too narrow in scope. Or maybe you could still put maybe for it, but yeah, either we eliminate it or put maybe to it. So in any case, we have two or sometimes, or in this case, maybe even three maybes. So we need to read more. And so we need to read more. That means from two, we will move on. Okay, so let's imagine that we are pressed for time. If we are pressed for time, you can even find the answer to the above main idea question, even after step 2, even if you are unsure on what the main idea is. So let's say we're not entirely sure on this main idea. So the educated guess among D and C, and maybe even A, would be probably D. Why? Because it's the most general choice. Describe efforts to accomplish a difficult goal. So that's the decaf process, okay? Whereas propose a new decaf process, we want decaf process in general, and a new decaf process is highly too specific for me, so it's out. And discuss the advantages of decaffeinated coffee. Well, it's talking about the decaf coffee. I want decaf process. It's not the same. So the safe educated guess for a prepared student is D rather than C or A. And so the generic choice is my best bet, okay? The most disliked choice. Now let's imagine that I'm not pressed for time, and since I have so many runner-ups, 2 or 3, then I do the following. It says, however, it's better to confirm your suspected main idea by scanning for further main idea clues to avoid guessing above and to strengthen your educated guessing position on subsequent questions where you will have to use the main idea, and so you have to be sure of the main idea, okay? Remember, some passages don't have a main idea question, so all you have is your main idea suspicion or shorthand, and the surer you are in it, the more useful it will be later on in process of elimination, attacking the more difficult questions. So here I refer to steps 3, 4, and 5 in addition to step 2. So let's see, step 3 would be the going backwards, just a moment. So step 3 here is the first sentence. It says, it is coffee's intense jolt of caffeine that has made this bitter brew so loved everywhere, and in blah, blah, blah. So it's popular, okay? It talks about popularity, so I keep reading because it's still unclear. I want to confirm this here, decaf process signals the popularity of coffee. So let's see the last sentence, step 4, location clue. 1,000 years later, humans consume 400 billion cups of coffee annually, making it the most popular beverage in the world. So yeah, this confirms the popularity of the coffee 1,000 years later. And here legend has it, tells me it's the other side of the issue. It's the conventional wisdom. I'm not interested in reading that. Okay, so it's still not confirmed. The decaf process is still not confirmed, okay? So to make my final confirmation of the decaf process, I resort to reading some more topic sentences. So step 6. So here I said step 3, 4, and 5. So after this step, it says, since the answer choice is C and D still or maybe, you should scan for even more main idea clues, the topic sentences, which are steps 6, 7, 8, and 9. Well, step 6, here it is. Practically decaffeinating a coffee bean is about as easy as unscrambling an egg. So decaf appears there, okay? Now, step 7, let's go on. The most popular method to remove caffeine from coffee bean relies on the use of a chemical solvent, okay? So, yeah, decaf again confirmed. Let's see step 8. Recently, however, science has come up with a slightly less toxic method, okay? So it turns out that the word anew in choice C is not good. So let's look at choice C. It says propose a new decaf process. The word new, it's not confirmed because it's more than, not just a new, but there are more than one decaf methods, okay? So decaf process is plural, okay? Such a small difference makes a huge difference. So C is out and choice D is the final solution. Now, some of the final observations. Note that I could have read the conclusions, last sentences of every inner paragraph. They would have been helpful too, but I purposely elected not to read more so as to save time. Treat time like money, okay? Treat time like money. And just as you should not waste your money on an incompetent tutor and inefficient group trainings, you should also avoid wasting your time on the SAT test, okay? That's all about this. Maybe one more observation. Here, legend has it. It's sort of like the yin part of the yin-yang clue. And the yang word is 1,000 years later. That shows that the main idea is sort of contained in it. But it's not entirely confirmed, so I was forced to read these sentences as well. If those sentences wouldn't have confirmed still my main idea, then I would end up reading the concluding remarks. But now I elected not to save time. So that's all for this exercise. Let's continue. And this exercise, the lesson from this is the following. If nothing else seems to work, then the main idea of the text is basically the main idea of passage 1 plus the main idea of passage 2 plus the main idea of passage n, however many paragraphs. So again, main idea of the text is main idea paragraph 1, main idea paragraph 2, plus main idea paragraph n, however many paragraphs I have in the passage. And main idea of paragraph n is the topic sentence of paragraph n plus the concluding sentence of paragraph n. Notice I put it in parentheses. Why? Because only if it's absolutely necessary. So the main idea of paragraph n usually is the combination of the topic sentence and the concluding last sentence, but usually one of them is enough. Many times a paragraph, either the topic sentence or the last sentence is useless or it's very hard to comprehend, and then I quickly need to switch to other, okay? Last sentence of paragraph n. Now, let's see what else do we have here. So let's attack the passage as we learned it. Step 1. The title of the passage, Speak for the Trees, on the next chit chat or city side chat, okay? Published in 2015, recent article. It's about trees. It's so recent that these are easy passages. Recent magazine article. I would do it earlier, probably the soonest among the passages. Now that I evaluated, I looked at step 1 and I know it's an easy passage. Let's try to determine the main idea. And for that, I would jump to the end. So step 2, the last sentence says, The results can help researchers understand the genetic code behind the disease. Okay. Well, based on this, I cannot determine the main idea because I have this reference that sends me back. It says the results. So that sends me back one sentence. It says, as millions of ash trees across Europe are killed by fungus, citizens, scientists participate in Facebook game Fraxinus to help align DNA sequences to assess variability in different strains of the pathogen. Okay, so I read this, but it's sort of still unclear what the main idea could be. So until I'm unclear about that, I still have to keep reading. So now I jump to step 3. Okay. Step 3 is the last sentence. The first sentence of the second paragraph, location clue. It says, most fundamentally strong clue that this is the main idea. Trees provide fresh air. Not only do they. So this means one benefit and there will be other benefits. So the main idea of this second paragraph, the ways trees benefit humans. Now I jump to, well, looking at the first paragraph, last sentence of the first paragraph in 1872 doesn't look that good. It sends me to the past, so it's historical background. And in the mid-1800s, it's even further in the past, historic background. So I don't like what I see, I quit. And I just put here main idea 1 is the beginnings of this, or history. So instead, now I proceed to read all the topic sentences. Step 4. Because trees provide so many benefits to people, tree planting events continue particularly for city trees. So again, the benefits, okay? Let's continue with step 5, topic sentence of the next paragraph. Many species of trees face blights of insect pests and diseases, okay? So trees have diseases, and then the results can help researchers understand the genetic code, and citizens participate in this Facebook game to help the scientists. So basically, the main idea is humans help ill trees in this last paragraph. And the main idea of the text, if I sum up all these sentences, the trees benefit humans and humans benefit trees. That would be the full main idea. And notice this passage is difficult because it's very time consuming. So it was essential that I save all that time previously on some of those other exercises so that I can allocate that time to this passage, which seems like it's not so hard, it's not so long, but still I have to read a lot more. That's fairly frequent. Many times shorter passages are more difficult, require more reading. Now let's look at the question. It says the main purpose of the passage is to. So the main purpose, it's a main idea question, obviously. And let's start at the end, as usual. Choice D says, encourage young people to plant trees in their neighborhoods. Well, I want trees benefit humans, humans benefit trees. It's important to have my shorthand ready. Scavenger hunt between those. It's not good because this is too specific. This is humans helping the trees, but what about trees helping humans? Choice C. It says, weigh the benefits impaired by the trees against the high cost of planting. It's not a human help is out of it. It's not part of it. And so the high cost of planting, it's too specific, narrow scope, narrow scope. Let's look at choice B. Describes the ways in which trees and humans benefit one another. Bingo, that's the one. It's a big maybe. Let's continue, just in case. You should always look at all the choices. A. Explain how J. Sterling Morgan ushered in a new age of environmentalism. This is a difficult word. It says cause, it means cause or mark the start of something new. But as I said before, and I say it again, choices with intimidating words, such as ushered, are rarely correct for main idea questions because they are difficult to defend. They make the exercise, the question, subjective, and SAT refrains from that. They want to remain objective as much as possible. So all in all, my big maybe, choice B will be the right answer. It's the closest to my shorthand. And then the next observation here, just a moment, I need to pull this up so that you guys can see this. It says, be sure to consider the last sentence of a paragraph in the above situation. If, so when do you do that? The topic sentence is not useful, too detailed, let's say, to get the main idea from it. It could happen. Or you cannot understand the topic sentence, okay? Why these things happen? Well, because the test designers usually adapt these passages. It's true, it's a requirement for the topic sentence always to have a main idea which completely describes the given paragraph and to describe it in a comprehensible manner. But many times they adapt these passages so that they are these weird topic sentences. Or many times the passage itself, it's so outdated, it's so much in the past, it's written in the past, so it's very difficult to comprehend, okay? Good. So that's that. Let's continue with something else. Let's move on to the double passages, okay? So the special cases of the main idea-based text processing strategy. Special case 1, dealing with the main idea in structured double passages, passage 1 and passage 2, okay? Previously P1 and P2 were paragraphs, now I use them as passage 1 and passage 2. So what are the steps? Number 1, scan the italicized text as before for the common topic. These two passages usually have always they have a common topic, which will narrow down to main ideas that mostly, not always, mostly disagree or agree with each other in passage 1 and passage 2. Once that's done, let's move on to the next step. Apply the main idea-based text processing strategy learned before for passage 1 and passage 2 to identify main idea 1 and main idea 2. Step 3, identify the relationship between main idea 1 and main idea 2. Mostly disagreement and agreement, mostly, or agreement. Step 4, use the above relationship as well as the main idea 1 and main idea 2 separately to answer the questions relating to these double passages, okay? Now, before moving on to the next step, let's see some exercises. So let's see this, this double passage. And this double passage says here, this double passage, so some tips. It says, start with main idea 2. Always start with the second one. They expect you to start with the first passage, start with the second one. Then identify the main idea 1 and expect to read more on double passages, obviously. The authors may or may not take a stand on the same issue, okay? An easy double passage means what? Both authors take a stand, agreement or disagreement, expect to read less on these easy types. On a hard double passage, what follows here, for example, one or both of the authors do not take a stand on the same issue, think that it is controversial, but this might be disguised by voicing strong opinions on a different issue. Expect to read more to catch that, okay? Now let's attack the passage as we learned it. Step 1, it says the following passages, so I know it's double passage. And let's continue. It's about psychoanalysis, so it's science, the study of human psychology pioneered by Sigmund Freud. So it's science, it's structured science, but it's double passage. It will be difficult, time-consuming, 2 times the amount of work because you have 2 passages, so 2 main ideas and relationship between those. And it will be also tricky because, yeah, we will see why. Now, as I said, let's move on to the main idea 2. Again, let's start step 2, the last sentence of the last passage. So it starts here. Why did no one else for thousands of years perceive these ideas until the great discoverer of unconscious mind, Sigmund Freud, unleashed his wacky his wacky, unverifiable, unscientific ideas on the world. Okay? Well, the tone is very ironic, as indicated by unleashed his wacky, unverifiable, unscientific ideas, and why no one else discovered it. So, based on this sentence alone, with so many strong words, I can just claim that psychoanalysis is unscientific based on this sentence alone. But if I want to confirm further, maybe I would add step 5, which would be, where is step 5? Yeah, step 5 is the first sentence. Of course, before I would go in order, so step 3 would be, it says there is no id, so I have no idea what he means. So I skip to the end. So topic sentence, then I skip to the end if I don't understand or it's meaningless. So I see psychoanalysis fails the test of falsifiability. Well, I'm not sure if that means that it's unscientific. So again, I need to confirm that whatever he said here, ironically, the author that unleashed his wacky ideas, does that mean unscientific? And so I don't know. Now I'm forced to read the first sentence. Here it says clearly, psychoanalysis is unscientific. Okay. So actually this last sentence confirms for me. So actually I cannot say main idea 2 is unscientific based on this last sentence. That's why I was forced to look into these parts. And finally, the first sentence of the first paragraph confirms that it means that. Okay, so I have a proper shorthand. Now I move on to the first passage, and the last sentence of the first passage will be this. The theory of psychoanalysis was innovative and revolutionary and clearly has withstood the test of time. Now, what does this mean? Now I know that main idea 2 is unscientific. Is this disagreement? I need to see how they relate to each other. And I wrote here a very important observation, but do not assume that this is equivalent to unscientific. Read more, okay? So beforehand, the main idea 2 was a strong statement. Main idea 2 is a strong statement. And here I need to see, it might be a trick, I need to see that this is equivalent to unscientific or to something else. So to do that, I need to, first I would probably read the topic sentence of that same paragraph. It says, and I need to read more. Someday in the future, perhaps we will have new technologies that will allow us to measure emotional and psychological data with the same precision available to researchers in the physical sciences. I read on because I want to clarify. Until that time, we will have to rely on the results, the tangible social benefits that psychoanalysis has brought us. So it probably means that psychoanalysis is beneficial. But to further clarify, I might even read more. So let's look at step 8, which says, sentence 8, many of the criticism of psychoanalysis dismiss the entire field as pseudoscience, okay? So, yeah, many of the criticism, but this is not the author. I care first and foremost about the opinion of the author, so the position of the author. So I read on to step 9, and that would be the last sentence, step 9, the last sentence of the first paragraph. It starts with though, so though some of the arguments against psychoanalysis are valid, okay, so if he recognizes that they are valid, then he says, well, it might be unscientific, but then it continues. They do not, it goes into the opposite, they do not undermine the fundamental truth. Through psychoanalysis, many patients have freed themselves from terrible mental anguish and achieved greater understanding of themselves and others. And I could even add another sentence, the validity of psychoanalysis as a science has been questioned since its inception, since the beginnings. So basically what I learned from all this crap is that the main idea 1, psychoanalysis is controversial. So the first author does not take a position on whether psychoanalysis is scientific or not based on sentence 7. Let's remind you, sentence 7 says that someday in the future maybe we have the ways to determine whether it's scientific or not. And the main idea 1 is basically psychoanalysis might be unscientific, sentence 9. So it says, though some of the arguments against psychoanalysis are valid, so that's that. And then, but is surely beneficial based on sentences 6 and 7. So these are about 6 and 7 are here. These sentences, 6 and 7, based on those, it's surely beneficial. Okay? And this part, that they are surely beneficial, this part disguises, masks the fact that main idea 1 does not disagree with main idea 2, and that's the heart of this exercise. SAT test designers went to a great extent to conceal this fact, because this is what will determine the correctness of your answer to the main idea questions and also the subsequent questions as well. But we only worry about the main idea questions. So let's see the question. Unfortunately here only on a separate page. I could manage, but I'm sure it will make sense. So here's the question. It says, which of the following statements best characterizes the perspectives presented in the two passages? So perspectives presented in the two passages is the main idea 1 and main idea 2 together are asked for. And as I look further into these choices, starting with the last, I notice the following. I have comma, whereas, I have that, I have comma, whereas, I have comma, whereas, comma, whereas. Okay, what does this mean? Well, it means the following. I have two-part answer choices. Beware the half-true type wrong answer choice trick when you see that kind. Since usually only the first half is correct, focus your attention on the second half of each answer choice and begin with the last choice to save time. So you begin with the last choice as usual, and you focus on the second half, comma, whereas. So it says the second passage focuses on one primary criticism. Well, yes, the second passage clearly took a stand on the issue. It said the psychoanalysis is unscientific, and it was really one primary criticism, as we recall. If not, we go back to the passage, to the crucial part of it. But as a reminder, here I have it for you. Psychoanalysis of Sigmund Freud is unscientific, so it focuses indeed on one primary criticism, so it's a maybe. At this point, I may not even look at the first part to save time. Later I will do. I will look at it. Now let's look at the next choice, choice D. It says that the second passage embraces. So here that refers back to a misconception, okay? So the second passage embraces, I'm not sure about this, so I'm always easy with the maybe. I keep that. I go for the easy kills, comma, whereas, let's go to the second half. It says that the second passage provides several viewpoints, okay? So, well, actually, it's one firm statement. Psychoanalysis is unscientific, so it's not many viewpoints. It doesn't provide several, it's just one, okay? Therefore, it's out. Choice B, whereas the second passage re-examines an idea. Well, it doesn't re-examine, it criticizes, okay? So B is out. And what about choice A? Whereas the second passage presents the views of a scientist. It doesn't present them, it criticizes them. Notice present and re-examine, they are weaker statements than criticize. And sometimes stronger statements, if they're supported by the crucial part of the passage, they could be correct. So here criticize is more accurate than either presents or re-examines. That's why I eliminated those choices. And so I end up with two maybes at this point. And now that I have two maybes, then I look at the first half to distinguish between those two. And now I save time because I don't need to look at the first half of those other choices. I could have looked at them if I wouldn't be able to eliminate them based on the second half only, okay? So let's look at the first part, choice E. The first passage presents several criticisms. Well, is that true? Maybe I can look back if I don't remember. And one crucial part, it says many of the criticism of the psychoanalysis dismiss the entire field. So yeah, and the whole paragraph talks about these. If I'm unsure, I could look into the topics and the second argument, the final argument. So yeah, it's confirmed that I actually have several criticisms. So yet again, I have another maybe sign for this. Let's see D. The first passage rejects a misconception. Well, we learned that the first passage, if you don't remember, it says psychoanalysis is controversial, so it doesn't reject anything. It's ambivalent, okay? It rejects the fact that if someone says that it's not beneficial, it rejects that. That's the trick. But the author, the second author, it just talks about unscientific. It doesn't talk about beneficial or not beneficial. So actually the two guys don't disagree per se, okay? So actually it's incorrect to say that it rejects anything. It rejects the idea that they are not beneficial, and we don't even know whether this is a misconception, you know? The two passages don't call misconception anything, so D is wrong, and so choice E is the right answer, okay? So the final observation here is the following. It says, if more than one answer choice is left after eliminating answer choices in the above fashion, you should eliminate further by analyzing the first half of the remaining choices, just as we did here, okay? So that's all for this one. Now let's do the final passage for today. And here we start step 1. Passage 1 is from 1689. It's Essay Concerning Human Understanding. It's a very old passage, so I expect it to be harder than passage 2, which is easier. It says the science of human nature. So human nature, human understanding, common topic in a way. And it's originally published in 1917. So I expect the second passage to be easier. Again, notice that's why it makes sense always to start with the second passage. Usually that's easier. It helps you understand both passages more if you start with the second. So now let's identify main idea 2 and 1 in that order. Step 2, the last sentence is the following. The modern man is at heart the same old man of the woods. Well, how so? What does it mean? I'm not so clear, so it sends me back. I add one more sentence. It says, in the relatively short period of civilization, our real original nature has been little changed, perhaps none at all. So human nature didn't change. Main idea 2, man is the same, basically. I don't read more. That's enough. Let's move on to main idea 1 and start at the end, step 3. Last sentence says, these two are the fountains of knowledge from where all the ideas we have or can naturally have do spring. And these two sends me back, okay? So I add one more sentence that starts here. It says, our observation employed either about external sensible objects or about the internal operations of our minds, perceived and reflected on by ourselves, is that which supplies our understanding with all the materials of thinking. So all the ideas, all the knowledge, all the human understanding here above, see, human understanding comes from our experience. So main idea 1, if I'm not clear, I can read even more. A brief look, a brief glance shows me there are question marks, quotations, and questions could be answered, especially if there are many question marks. I don't want to read all that crap. So I expect an answer, and sure enough, there's the answer. To this, I answer in one word, from experience. So Experience is the source of human understanding, the topic. So, main idea 1, experience is the source for knowledge, human understanding, and knowledge shapes man. Okay? So, the two guys disagree. If I connect these two main ideas, the two authors, or two women, two guys, whatever, men are the same, or men are shaped by their experience, they disagree. Both authors take a stand on the same issue. It's disagreement, okay? Disagreement. Now I look at the question. It says, which choice best states the relationship between the two passages? So, relationship between the two passages, basically they ask for the main idea of the two passages. And I will start with the last, as usual, to get ahead of the competition. Passage 2 expands upon the philosophical stance presented in the passage. Well, they disagree. Expand upon, it's weaker than disagree. I won't disagree. It's incorrect. It's out. Choice C. Passage 2 refutes the process describing the role of learning outlined in passage 1. I immediately underline refutes because I scan for important words. I don't just read for fun here. Refutes resonates with disagreement. What we said here, disagreement. So it's a big maybe. Let's see B. Passage 2 questions. The important word questions. In the first sight, maybe, first glance, maybe, I say, okay, it resonates with disagreement if you question something. The line of reasoning that passage 1 uses to reach a conclusion. So another maybe. Be easy with the maybe. We can come back to these two maybes later. And then we will slow down and we will think about it. And choice A. Passage 2 defends a controversial theory presented in passage 1. Well, the two guys or two girls, two women disagree. So, or a man with a woman disagrees. And so they cannot defend each other's opinion. So we're down to two maybes, and let's think about it more. Refutes versus questions. Well, it turns out that refutes is disagreement, while questions something, it's not really disagreement. When you question something, basically you say that you think that this idea is controversial, so you're not so sure about it. So let's investigate it more. And question means that the author does not take a stand on the issue. If you didn't know that, or if you still have doubts, just remember, think about it and remember that this is what questioning means. So don't fall for this cheap trick. I have told you now. You have no excuses. And so here we added one more sentence. So basically, questions is not disagreement, B is out, and C is the right solution. That's the final solution. And that's that for this exercise. Now let's come back for a moment for this page, which I set aside because there is some stuff about what we do with. So special case number 2. Dealing with the main idea in a not so structured, old or not so old personal narrative signaled by the presence of I, and in a non-structured literature text, which is signaled by the presence of quotations pertaining to various characters, okay? So how do we deal with these special situations? Step 1. A literature text has no structure. There's no main idea, no topic sentence, no paragraph conclusion. And since the main idea-based text processing strategy is essentially a structure-based text processing strategy, it cannot be applied here. So forget about identifying the main idea. The good news is that SAT only has one literature passage, so you leave the literature passage to the very last, unless for some odd reason you love literature SAT passages. And then what you do instead, you skip the main idea question after circling it so that it's clearly indicated when you come back to the second wave. You do the questions in waves, by the way. And after that, what you do, answer all the other questions first. And step 3, answer the main idea question based on your readings required to answer the other questions, okay? That's what I would do. Of course, many students like to read the full literature passage beforehand. You can do that, but this is a better method. It's more systematic, although it takes some time to get used to. Final advice, beware, leave the literature text at the very end, as I said before, as it is both more challenging due to the lack of structure and more time-consuming than other texts. Why? Especially since many students prefer to read the full literature text before attacking the questions. Okay, so that's that. And for more on SAT reading and getting help with the other sections, please sign up for my private tutoring on my website. For additional mini tutoring courses, please subscribe to my YouTube channel or follow me on Facebook.